Let's talk about enchanting. In every video I've seen, they always say that the best way to enchant is using books, but I disagree. Because how do you get enchanted books? Through villagers. And who would willingly put themselves through the torture of dealing with villagers, having to build a breeder, zombifier, and getting all enchantments from them? I wouldn't. I would much prefer building an XP farm and chilling there killing endermen. I mean, even if you have all the books, you still need a bunch of levels to put them on your items. So you would build an XP farm anyway. And the concern always is that you need to put the books on in a specific way so it doesn't get too expensive. Well, that's not gonna happen if you get decent enchantments from a table and then put on a few books. So let me guide you through the process of enchanting without experiencing any major frustration. First, build yourself an XP farm. The simplest one is an enderman farm, which you can check out in the description. Another way to get XP is mining in the nether, more specifically for quartz. You can even do that in the early game once you have a decent pickaxe. But if you do build the farm, attach an enchanting station to it with a grindstone and an anvil. And also make sure you have plenty of lapis. The best way to find it is mining at Y level 0. Also make sure there is nothing in between the bookshelves and the table, because even stuff like carpets and torches block it. But you can take advantage of this. Let's say you're in the early game and you have just 28 levels and it would take you a while to get to 30. You can just place a torch and enchant at a lower level, which doesn't make that much of a difference. Also, the bookshelf arrangement doesn't matter as long as it's one block away and either at the same level or one higher. It also includes the corners. And of course you need 15 of them to get max level enchantments. Now you will need at least one villager for mending and maybe one for unbreaking, but that's it. You can easily get those by finding zombie villagers and curing them. Before we get into the specifics, here are some general tips. If you can convert your diamond stuff to netherite before enchanting it, do it. Because more expensive tools, weapons and armor have a higher chance to get better enchantments. And if you see an enchantment here that you don't want, like fortune on an axe or maybe blast protection on your armor, just do the level 1 enchantment and use a grindstone to remove it. That will reset it and you lose just one level. So which enchantments do you actually need and how do you get them? Let's talk about tools first. You want to have efficiency 5, unbreaking 3 and mending on all your tools. Ideally, you would have 2 pickaxes, one with fortune 3 and one with silk touch. The only use fortune 3 has on a shovel is getting flint, so there's really no point, and you should probably just get silk touch. And fortune on an axe does pretty much nothing. Well, it increases the drop rate of apples, saplings and crops, but so it does on every tool, so you're much better off just having a silk touch axe. You can also add sharpness 5 to it, so you don't need to carry around your sword. Then you have your hoe, which is actually useful since 1.16. If you add silk touch to it, then it's great for gathering leaves. And a fortune hoe, I mean again crops, saplings and apples, and that's really it, so I don't recommend making one. And to get these perfect tools from the enchantment table, you want to get efficiency 4, unbreaking 3 and either silk touch or fortune 3 in one go. And if you don't, just use a grindstone and try again. It's impossible to get efficiency 5, but it's pretty common to get efficiency 4 on a book, so you can add it after. By the way, if you get multiple enchantments on a book, you can still add it just fine. Getting sharpness on an axe from the table is also impossible, so enchant books until you get sharpness 4 twice. Combine it and then put it on your axe. And let's quickly mention fishing rods. You want to have lure and luck of the sea 3, then unbreaking and mending. It's not too rare to get all these enchantments at once, but even if you have something worse, it doesn't really matter, because you'll probably catch a better fishing rod eventually. Now let's talk about armor. Which of these protections should you have? Well, the answer is simple, just get protection 4 on everything. Your instinct might be to get each one, but prot 4 outperforms this setup in every situation. Besides protection, you obviously want unbreaking and mending, then respiration and aqua affinity on your helmet, and feather falling, depth strider and soul speed on your boots. And probably not frostwalker, it's not very useful. And what about thorns? On multiplayer for PvP you definitely want those. But in single player it could cause you some headaches, especially with zombie villagers, or when getting an endermite into your enderman farm. So unless you like to AFK out in the open, I wouldn't recommend it. So when enchanting your chestplate or leggings, you want to get prot 4 and unbreaking at once, and just add mending. On a helmet, along with prot and unbreaking, you want to get respiration 3, because it's quite rare to get it on a book and aqua affinity isn't. And on boots, either feather falling or depth strider, along with these two, but depth strider is much more common than feather falling. So you'll probably have to get it on a book. And for soul speed, you of course need to trade with piglins. Okay, let's move on to weapons. On a sword, you want to have looting 3, sharpness 5, obviously unbreaking and mending, and for single player, fire aspect and knockback are definitely not necessary, or at least I don't really recommend them. Knockback is great against creepers, but super annoying against skeletons. And with fire aspect, fighting endermen an absolute nightmare, and I don't use it just because of this clip alone.
No!
So for single player, it's a matter of personal preference, but if you're playing on a server and you're gonna do some form of PvP, it definitely helps. And if you really want it, you can also make yourself another sword with smite 5 for fighting withers. To acquire the perfect sword, you wanna get sharpness 4, looting 3 and unbreaking 3 at once, and either knockback or fire aspect on top of that if that's what you want. Then add your mending. It is impossible to get sharp 5, so you need to get an extra sharpness 4 book and add it. But it is possible to get smite 5. Smite is useful not only against withers, but any undead mob. So that's skeletons, strays, all types of zombies, zombie piglins, and also phantoms. So it's a great alternative to sharpness. And if you're thinking about getting Bane of Arthropods, don't, because it increases damage only on spiders and silverfish. So what about bows? Ideally you would have all enchantments, so that's power 5, unbreaking 3, punch 2, flame, and either infinity or mending. You can't have both. I would recommend infinity over mending so you don't have to carry around a bunch of arrows, but that's up to you. So you want to get at least 3 enchantments at once. Also it's impossible to get power 5. So let's say you get power 4, infinity and unbreaking. You add another power 4 book, then flame and punch, and it costs you 18 levels in total, and you'll be able to repair it plenty of times. Crossbows in single player aren't that useful, besides getting a couple achievements, but they are essential for PvP. You can have a crossbow with piercing, which allows you to shoot through shields, or a multi-shot crossbow, which if you load up with explosive fireworks, can cause mass destruction. Then on any crossbow, you definitely want quick charge 3, unbreaking and mending. If you want piercing, you wanna see this from the enchantment table. It's pretty common actually. It's impossible to get quick charge 3 like this, so you'll have to get a quick charge 2 book, and then of course add mending. Now multi-shot is a lot more rare than piercing, so if you get multi-shot and quick charge 2 at once, just take it. But ideally you would get unbreaking with that, but you would have to get quite lucky. Now let's take a look at tridents. You definitely want unbreaking 3, mending, loyalty 3 and then either channeling or riptide 3. Impaling isn't that useful unless you're using a trident as a ranged weapon, but most of the time you're better off using a bow. With channeling, you can summon lightning during a thunderstorm and create charged creepers. And if they kill one of these mobs, they will drop a mob head. And with Riptide, you can launch yourself from water or in the rain, so it really depends what you want to use it for. So ideally, you would get 3 enchantments at once, as long as they're the ones you want. Also, it is possible to get Impaling 5 from the enchantment table. And finally, you have stuff like the Elytra, a shield, flint and steel and shears, which you can't enchant on the enchantment table, but you can put unbreaking and mending on them with books. So with that, thank you so much for watching, subscribe if you want to get better at Minecraft, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.